Marianne Renner is the kind of person that if you are blessed to meet in this lifetime, you know that you have met someone special.
So many people are stuck in chaos, personally and professionally. It's like if we have a garage that's filled with a whole bunch of stuff and we need to just take it all out of the garage, then decide like what goes back in and how to organize it and create that clarity. The greatest and most dangerous chaos is not out there. It's in here. I struggled with decades of debilitating depression starting at age 11 with my father. My dad had his arms wrapped around me. He was sitting in a chair and we were eye to eye. And he said three words that forever changed the course of my life. Mommy's in heaven. I tried workaholism and that did not work. I tried alcoholism and that absolutely did not work. What I do have control over is how I respond to the situation, how I choose to show up.
Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome to this brand new episode of The Thrive Show with yours truly, Giovanna, Lady J. Ellison. I could not be more excited about today's podcast interview. Listen, you all already know I don't interview a ton of people because I just believe you have to have the right quality relationships with people first before you bring them onto your platform. And the woman I'm getting ready to talk to you about is somebody who is genuine from her heart. We actually started in business a little bit together. Our both of our mentors was Dan Miller, and I get kind of emotional just thinking about him. But Marianne Renner is the kind of person that if you are blessed to meet in this lifetime, you know that you have met someone special. And I say that genuinely and from my heart. I am so excited for you to meet her. So don't let me waste any more time. I'm going to give you the formal introduction about her in just a moment. But Marianne, welcome into the Thrive Show.
Oh, Giovanna, thank you. I'm telling you, my heart is overflowing with gratitude to be here with you. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's my honor. Thank you for being on. So, let me talk to you all a little bit about Marianne just a moment here. She has accomplished so much. And so, I want you all to kind of hear a little bit about what she has done. So, Marianne is a transformational leadership coach, and she helps emerging leaders gain clarity and confidence so that they can become the leaders they were meant to be. I like to call her the Clarity Queen. She spoke at our Thrive Summit actually back in 2019. And by the way, we're getting ready to do another Thrive Summit this year, September 5th, 6th, and 7th. Yes, a 3-day conference. So make sure you register at the link below because we're going to have some phenomenal speakers and leaders there. And I don't want you to miss out. So through speaking and coaching, she has taught thousands of leaders to find the necessary skills to achieve greater success, find more fulfillment in their work, and uncover unlimiting beliefs that keep them stuck in self imposed glass ceilings. She has a background in marketing, communications, and lean process improvement. Her strategic approach to problem solving has led to award winning marketing initiatives and financial improvements for businesses. Marianne understands the importance of setting goals. By the time she was 32 years old, she owned her own business, founded a not for profit for at risk youth, and listen to this, was a bodybuilding champion and highly sought after fitness instructor. Now, she and I ate lunch together about 3 months ago. And when I tell you this woman is healthy, she ordered a salad, y'all, and I felt I was going to get the hamburger and fries. I'm just being honest, right? But I did order the salad with a side of fries. I'm just going to be honest. So she has led two youth dance teams to win gold medals in the National Junior Olympics. She is phenomenal. Marianne, let's just welcome you into the platform. And yes, that's your bio. And yes, we can read all the professional stuff, but at your core, who do people say that you are?
Well, oh, thank you, Giovanna. Who do people say I am? I would hope that they would say that I'm authentic, that I'm vulnerable. I
Mhm.
would hope that they would say that I care.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So take us on a journey of this whole clarity piece. I would really love to center our discussion today around clarity. When did you know in your journey that you really wanted to focus on helping people move from chaos to clarity?
Giovanna, that's such a great question. I don't think I had that clarity.
Mm,
Someone was sort of a mirror. I mean, other people in our lives tend to be mirrors for us. I really
mhm,
believe that.
mhm,
And I was describing my business and what I do to a close friend of mine. And he said, "You know what you're doing? You're helping leaders move from chaos to clarity." And
mhm,
I actually hadn't seen that,
mm,
but that outside set of eyes helped me to realize that, in fact, that is what I do. And so many people are stuck in chaos.
yeah.
So many people in so many areas of their lives, personally and professionally.
Mm,
And so sometimes we just need to kind of it's like if we have a garage that's filled with a whole bunch of stuff and we need to just take it all out of the garage, like get it
yeah.
all out
Yeah.
and then decide like what goes back in and how to organize it and
Mm.
create that clarity.
Mm. So, how has your own understanding, Marianne's understanding of clarity, evolved through this entrepreneurship journey? And what would you say has surprised you the most?
I what has surprised me the most is really what I just said is the chaos that people are in and
Mhm.
probably and this is my own journey as well, how much of the chaos is self-imposed. How
Mm.
much of it comes from the inside? We are exposed to all kinds of external chaos. I mean, we there none of us or none of the listeners are going to be surprised when I say the world outside of us is filled with chaos.
Mhm.
But the greatest and most dangerous chaos is not out there.
Mm.
It's in here. And
Mm.
it shows up in all the stories that we're telling ourselves and all of the messages and the self-talk
Mhm.
that is keeping us kind of it's like spinning around like an old tennis shoe in a clothes dryer. Round and around we go. And I
Mhm.
think that's probably been my biggest sort of aha moment in this journey.
Oh, wow. So take us back. I know your story, but everybody else may not know your story. Talk a little bit about, or as much as you want to, talk about how, but where you were before and where you are now.
Okay, yeah. So this is interesting because my journey and kind of where I started is what led me to where I am today, in the work that I'm doing and the people that I work with and the ways that I'm helping them.
Mm,
But Giovanna, I struggled with decades of debilitating depression starting at age 11.
mm,
And so, I mean, I remember distinctively when all of this began. I was 9 years old in my family living room, and I was standing with my father. My dad had his arms wrapped around me. He was sitting in a chair, and we were eye to eye. And he said three words that forever changed the course of my life. He said, "Mommy's in heaven." And in that moment, that's when I remember my internal chaos and all of the stories in my mind starting, like, what's going to happen to me?
mm,
Why? Why is this happening to me?
mm,
And the first time I remember, I used to cry in my bed and lie at the ceiling and or stare at the ceiling and lying in my bed, and I would just cry out loud, like,
mm,
God, let me die in my sleep.
mm,
And the first time I remember crying out that way, I was 11 years old. And so everything after that, Giovanna, was just a search to make the bad feelings go away. And I
mm,
think a lot of us are doing that. The
mhm,
decisions that we make, the choices that we make are all either to get a feeling or avoid a feeling. And
mm,
that was my story. And I tried everything. I tried workaholism, and that did not work. I tried alcoholism, and that absolutely did not work. And so where I am today really came from years and years of searching for relief from those bad feelings and learning all of the tools to help me clear out my inner chaos.
wow. Oh, this is so rich. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. It takes a lot. And I know you worked through a lot of that. What would you say was that hinge moment for you? You talked a little bit about the person, the good friend that you talked to, but what was that hinge moment for you that swung the door wide open to you discovering that I'm going to try a different path now.
There was a hint, there was a hinge moment. I love the way you described that. I love that
Mm,
metaphor, but
yeah.
it was kind of like dominoes. So that first moment, it wasn't like I went from point A to where I am today, but it
Right.
was definitely like dominoes falling. And there were many, many mornings when I call them my bathroom mirror moments. I'm in
Mhm.
the bathroom getting ready to start the day, getting ready for work.
Mhm.
And this particular day was like many others where I'm sobbing, looking in the mirror, saying, I can't live like this anymore. But this particular morning, the shift was this thought in my head, what if I could live like this? And I was
Mm.
referring to the feelings of depression.
Right.
And there was a moment of acceptance, a moment of surrender where I said, what if I stop saying all of these resisting phrases like, I can't stand it, I can't live like this? It
Mhm.
all sort of led to the story of it's not fair and
Mm.
woe is me. And all
Mm.
it did was continue to keep me on this downward spiral. And in
Mm.
this moment, I said, well, what if I could live like this? There are a lot of people who live with a lot of terrible things. And there was something in that moment that said, what if I could? Meaning there was a release of all of the resistance. There was a release of the negativity and the heaviness well, let's just
Mm.
go about the day and see what happens. And that led to this sort of openness in my heart and in my mind. And that led me to the next step
Mm.
of discovering who I am and what I was capable of accomplishing.
Oh my gosh, that is such a journey. What you described was, I love how in the beginning you said it wasn't this straight line from A to B immediately. It was more like a squiggly line that went all like this all over the place to get to where you were. What would you say is the thing that helped sustain you through that growth as you felt yourself changing, as you felt yourself opening up to new ways of thinking? What was the thing that encouraged you to
Yeah.
really keep going and not fall back into that depression?
So I am so grateful to have so many different, I call them divine interventions in my
Yeah.
life. And one of
Yes.
them was an AA sponsor who
Mm.
taught me this concept of taking personal responsibility for
Mm.
my choices, for my thoughts, and for my actions. And
Mm.
the lesson didn't come in a very fun way. We were talking. She said, Marianne, I want you to go make a list of
Uh-huh.
every person who ever wronged you. And I thought, ooh, I like this. I like this activity. I can't wait. And let me tell you, I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and I couldn't wait to show her my list because in my mind, the whole world needed to understand the problems and woes of poor Marianne.
Mhm.
But when I came back the next week to show her my list, she
Mhm.
wasn't nearly as impressed as I thought she should be. Instead, she said, next to every one of those situations, write your role in the situation. And that was probably the biggest lesson that kept me going forward. In the moment, I
Mhm.
didn't like it, but
Mhm.
ultimately, I came to realize that it was the most empowering tool I could ever have to know that I always have a choice,
You know,
especially when it feels like I don't.
there you go. You all listen to that again. You always have a choice, especially when you feel like you don't. What you just said reminded me of a book I just finished. I have it over here, of a book I just finished by Mel Robbins. It's called Let Them. And you just described that whole philosophy. Let them act crazy. Let them hurt me. Let
Mhm.
them lie. Let them, right?
Yep.
But now let me. And
Yes.
so let me be a person of integrity. Let me be a person of truth, of honesty, a resilient human being. What was that what were some of the let them moments that just really got under your skin, Marianne, and that you had to say, you know what, I'm going to have to let that go, or was harder for you to let go of?
There were like 4,083 of those, Joanna.
Yes, yes, yes.
It was everything from, gosh, my parents were on that list. I
Mm,
had bosses on that list, ex-boyfriends were on that list. I
mhm,
mean, you name it, God was on that list.
mhm,
And that was where that sort of tied in with that moment of surrender to say, let that go. What
mhm.
I do have control over is how I respond to the situation,
Yes.
how I choose to show up, the words I choose to speak,
Mm.
and even the thoughts that I choose to focus on.
Oh, wow. So, speaking of choosing your words, you recently wrote a book called Self Talk. I have a copy of it right here. 10 stories you tell yourself that hold you back and how to overcome them. And recently, you shared something with me that I actually just want to highlight for those of you that are listening in. One of her readers actually sent in, and she gets messages like this all the time, but this message in particular was just finished your book. Absolutely loved it. And there are life-changing tools I learned and can't wait to start practicing them. Thank you for being vulnerable and opening up to others. I'll cherish this book forever. So, Marianne, after hearing a comment like that and people saying, wow, I may need to read this, I want to read this, I have to read this, what are some of those life-changing tools? Maybe give me the top two or three that you talk about.
Okay, so this is going to sound this is so practical. So life changing is really big. And I actually had a conversation when I got that text message from that woman. I said, "Hey, I'd love to hear more. Like
Sure.
what specifically? Because that's really a big message."
Mhm.
And she gave me this great example, and it was so practical because these tools are so they're practical as well as life changing. She said, I got this email today, and I read the email, and I thought to myself, the person who sent me this email is very mad at me, and now I'm really worried at work. This is at work. And
Mhm.
what if I get in trouble and I have to hurry up and respond? And I am responding in a very with a tone that's very anxiety ridden. And she said, no, that was my self talk.
Mm,
The
mm,
situation was that I received an email,
mhm,
and here are the words on it. But I
mhm,
told myself a story that that person was mad at me, which
mm,
was not the case at all.
at all. Wow.
And there's a chapter in the book with a framework to help people identify the situation,
Yes.
identify the story they tell themselves. And here's what where things go wrong.
Mhm,
Based on our thoughts evoke an emotion, and
mhm.
that emotion is what informs our action. And that's
So
what she was about to do. She felt anxious, she felt upset, and then her email that she was going to start to write was going to reflect on that. But she was able to reverse engineer that process, stop, create a pause so that she could change what she said. The entire outcome of that situation changed. And when you start to do that, you start to see all these changes, and they just grow and grow and grow. And over the course, it'll change your career, your relationships, personal and professional life.
Oh, wow. I love that example. It reminds me of a story where there was well, we had done a leadership conference, and one of the examples, it was on dealing with conflict. And one of the examples is how would you respond? You just get or an email, a long email from someone who is really basically throwing up 20 years of unsaid hurt, trauma, and anger onto you. Do you respond or do you not respond? And one of the things that we talked about was it's so wise not to respond immediately to something like that, because again, how you choose to respond is your choice. And so you talk about that in this book. In fact, everybody, we're putting it up on the screen right now, but you can go to mariannerenner.com to get a copy of the book. Marianne, in your experience, is clarity something we discover or is it something we create?
I think it's a skill that needs to be practiced for most people. Probably discover. Most people are living in a chaos. I call that the inner chaos.
Mhm.
And to clear that out is, another way of saying the inner chaos is to the stories that we tell ourselves. That's where it comes from. We're telling ourselves stories. We have self talk going on all day long. It's creating chaos in our minds. It's creating an emotional storm and roller coaster. And so it takes practicing tools to develop a skill set of moving through life with clarity.
Yes, yes. And what would you tell someone once they have that clarity, how to maintain that clarity? Because life is a series of ups and downs, isn't it? It's like a roller coaster ride. And
Mhm.
sometimes the clarity we had in one season isn't it's kind of foggy in the next season. So
Yes. Yeah, yes, exactly. And
Mhm.
nothing is usually a direct line.
Exactly.
And a lot of that is choosing tools and
Mhm.
practicing them and doing it in a way that builds habits. So,
Mhm.
the best way to sustain, I have a chapter in the book on how to build habits.
Mhm.
And it's when the story you're telling yourself is it's too hard. One
Mhm.
day, maybe we have clarity, we're doing really well. The
Mhm.
next day, we feel like we haven't made any progress at all. And we think this is too hard. I'm just going to give up.
Yeah.
But the key to overcoming that is to create habits. The more you can take something, even starting small, chunk it way down, practice it every day, whether you're journaling, whether you're doing using tools, which by the way, the book has dozens and dozens of tools that people can use and practice. But ultimately, building those daily habits is the best way to sustain progress for the long run.
Yeah, yeah. I have found, and tell me if you agree, but I found that clarity really helps protect your bandwidth.
Mm,
So you're not saying yes to everything. Instead, you're saying yes to the things that matter the most. Sometimes people they have to say yes to a bunch of stuff, especially in the beginning. If you're starting your business or entrepreneurial journey, you're saying yes to a lot of stuff because you're trying to find your spot, you're trying to find your
yes.
niche. But the more clarity you get, that clarity builds confidence, and that confidence can say, hey, no, that's not for me
Yes.
right now. Have you found that to be true in your own journey?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the clarity is the clarity of thinking, and our thoughts
Mhm.
are tied to our emotions. And
Yes.
so when you have the chaos in your mind, then it's creating this emotional roller coaster. Then you can't make the choices that are the best, highest, truest choices for you and the greater good of all.
Yeah.
And so you need to start with those with your thoughts and create that clarity, because once you do that, then you're not triggering that emotional roller coaster, and you have the mental and emotional capacity to choose what's best.
Mm. Yes, I love how you have that emphasis throughout the book and here in the interview too on the word choose. So, I'm going to take a pivot for a moment and then we'll get back to clarity in a second. But what was one of your fondest memories of Dan?
Oh my gosh.
I caught you
Okay,
off
that's
guard with
like,
that one.
yeah, it's like asking me to choose my favorite ice cream or something.
Ah,
All of the above.
I know, I
Probably the
know.
first time I met him. The
Mhm,
first time it was May 13th, 2016. I mean,
mhm,
that's how much I remember that. And walking into, I thought I was going to a conference, which I technically was, but it was unlike any conference I had ever been to. I pull up on this gravel road to this sort of out in the country space in this renovated barn, and I was just blown away. He was smart and kind. He
mhm.
was successful and humble. I
Yes,
mean, he just had that blend.
yes.
And I was kind of afraid to talk to him. I was a little intimidated. And I said, "Hey, I got a question. Could we talk?" And he was just so gracious. He said, "Come over to the porch." And we sat on the swing, and
Mhm.
he encouraged me to do the work that I'm doing today. And that porch swing moment and that first time meeting him is probably one of my favorite memories.
Oh my gosh. It's so funny you saying that because I remember meeting Dan and Joanne. Actually, it was at Coaching with Excellence in 2014. And I'll never forget, he was in his back office. And when I first walked into the sanctuary, Ashley was there. Ashley, his daughter, everybody, Dan Miller's daughter. She was there kind of getting everything set up for the event. And I remember Dan came out of his office because I couldn't wait to get to the conference, Marianne. I was early. I was like 30 minutes early, right? I was so excited. I
Love
just
it.
felt like something great was getting ready to happen. I didn't know what, but I knew I was supposed to be there at that season in my life. And he came out of his office. His hands were full of books because he had been reading and studying. And he stopped everything and it was almost like he was just taken. And we just got into a conversation. And he was just that humble, so brilliant. And one of the things that I first felt about him was that he was a dynamic listener. Dynamic listener. When most people are listening, not to listen, but so that they can have a response, he's truly there in the moment. I just had to ask that question because I know we both share him as a mentor, even now, still in
Yeah.
spirit.
Yeah.
How did your business change, if any, after he passed?
I'm gonna try not to cry, whenever I
Okay.
think about Dan. I think I actually it's grown a lot. It's grown way more than I even expected.
Mhm.
Mostly because of the book that I wrote. And I
Mhm.
wrote the book in large part because of Dan. It
Mm,
was a book that he encouraged me to write.
mm,
And it was a book that as I wrote it, I thought about him while I was writing it.
mm,
I had a first draft and as you're an author, the first, as I'm writing it, I thought this is pure gold. And then
mm.
I read it and I thought, not so much.
Right.
So I put it on a shelf and I thought, I don't know what to do with this thing. It really wasn't in that great of shape. I don't know what to do with it. So I'll set it on a shelf and then, eventually I'll write it and Dan will read it. I can't wait. But
Mm,
while it was sitting on a shelf, Dan received, terrible diagnosis, the cancer diagnosis, and was gone 48 days later. And when I learned of the diagnosis, I just knew did not want to put the book on a shelf or anything in life on a shelf. I just knew life was meant to take action. And so I wrote the book, published the book, and everything has changed because of the book. I've had
mm,
more clarity on the
mm.
message that I want to share with the world.
Yes. Oh, wow. So you took what was on the shelf and you put it out into the world. What do you tell people who still have that dream on the shelf?
Yeah,
What's the first step they need to take?
just that. Take a step.
Mhm,
Take a step.
mhm,
Get away from your computer and
mhm,
go out into the world and take a
mm,
step. And
mm,
I just had this conversation with someone yesterday. It's so
mhm,
easy to just sit behind the computer and dream and write and think and create electronic things, but
mm.
you got to just take the step even
That's
when you
it.
don't know if the ground is going to meet you underneath or not.
Yes, yes. And to everyone listening, I want to say this. It's so important that you do success together in community, in relationship, because you could be the best consultant, leadership training coach, everything. You could be the best, but if no one knows who you are, success happens in community and relationship. I think I can't remember if it was Brendan Burchard or somebody, but they said if you're successful, you get to that top of the ladder and you're by yourself, you did it wrong.
Mm,
So,
absolutely.
talk a little bit about the importance of relationships, Marianne, in this whole entrepreneurial journey. How has surrounding yourself with the right people really helped you or maybe challenged you even?
Yeah, it has helped so much.
Mm,
There are a couple of chapters in the book. There's a chapter called Holding Great Expectations, and it talks about Dan and meeting Dan and all of the different people that I
mm,
met as a result. And so that was when the dominoes fell, I could trace each domino back to a particular person. And I mentioned earlier in our conversation the divine interventions. I mean, the
mm,
people are everything. And then there's a chapter called Find a Guide. You need relationships with peers,
mhm,
and you also need relationships with people that can serve as your guide, your
mhm,
champion, maybe those who have gone before you to
mhm.
help you see the things that you cannot see.
Yeah, I love that. Talk a little bit about the importance of investing in yourself. Most people who are listening, you already understand the importance of investing in yourself and realizing you got to put skin in the game. But
Mm-hmm.
we both were part of a mastermind and different programs
Yeah.
with Dan, and those weren't free to go to. We had to open our wallet, pay for them, show up, put skin in the game. Talk about the importance of putting your money where your mouth is.
Well, I mean, it's critical. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to make an investment in yourself. And I think the step before that is, do you believe in yourself? Because if you're not investing in yourself, there's a root cause. What's going on? What's the chaos in your mind? What's the
Mhm.
story that you're telling yourself that's underneath the choices that you're making to not invest in yourself? Because you have to make the investment first before you can move forward. I can't build a retirement fund, a 401k fund, or an investment, a mutual fund, unless I put money into the fund first.
Wow. Yes. Oh, I heard someone say the transformation is in the transaction, or the
Mm.
the transformation starts with the transaction. Oh my gosh. I remember when I made my first business investment, Marianne. It was scary to say the least. I was still working my full-time job. I hadn't gone on to full entrepreneurship yet. It was a significant investment. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
being on the way to work at the stoplight. My foot was literally on the brake, trembling, like shaking, like, what have I just done? And I
Mm.
knew that I didn't want to go into debt to pay for the
Mm-hmm.
investment. So I was going to have to believe in myself, number one, and number two, do what it took to
Yes.
actually, get the result. Have you ever been in a situation like that, or your clients?
So it's interesting. It's going to be a continuation of a story we just talked about. But
Sure.
when I knew or thought that I wanted to start a business in coaching and speaking,
Mm-hmm.
I thought I really don't know much about it. And so I was looking for someone who had gone before me.
Yes.
And I found someone through, a mutual acquaintance. And April 29th, 2016, I was on the phone with this woman I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I was asking her all kinds of questions. And I really liked what I heard. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm looking for a certification program, an education program. Do you have any that you'd recommend? And she said, Dan Miller, 48 Days to the Work You Love. I didn't know him or anything about him,
Mm.
but I made that investment to go to that first Coaching with Excellence conference.
Yes.
And from there, I joined another program. He had the coaching certification program, which was another investment. And I kept going from there. But
Mm.
the thing that you mentioned that I really like, Giovanna, too, is you have to make the decision to invest in yourself and do it with wisdom. So it
Amen.
doesn't mean just go out and start swiping your credit card right and left. It
Yes.
doesn't mean going into terrible debt. And it does mean working hard to make it
Mhm.
happen.
Mm. So well said. So we're getting ready to wrap it up, but I would love to wrap us up with a couple, with just well, a question as it relates to technology and AI right now. How do you feel our relationship with technology impacts our ability to find clarity? When so many people can just go to an app and say, hey, write this out for me, or give me what to think about XYZ. What do you say about people who are depending heavily on technology? Talk about the balance that's needed
Yeah.
there.
Technology is a tool. It's a powerful tool. It's like any other power tool.
Mm-hmm.
It has the power to create. You can use power tools to build a beautiful house,
Hmm.
and it has the power to destroy. You
Hmm.
can use it to destroy yourself and everyone around you. So I think, like everything else, you just need to use wisdom and
Hmm.
remember that it's a tool for you to use and not to let it use you.
Yeah, well said. Well said. So, lightning round here, just some fun questions. All right. So, you are heels or flats on a regular day?
If I'm in the house, it's flats. If I leave the house, it's heels.
Ah, very nice. Very nice. All right. Small handbag or large handbag?
Whoa. Yes. Depending on where, if I'm going out for the evening, small handbag. If I'm going on a speaking engagement, large handbag.
Yes, or if you're going to lunch with Giovanna, large handbag, because I saw that big handbag.
I had my laptop. So I had my laptop in that
Did
large
you?
handbag. So yeah, if I'm going out for the evening with friends, it would be small. But if I can multitask and do some other things, it's large.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Next one. Favorite AI app you're using right now?
Favorite AI app. I used Chat GPT last night.
Nice, nice. Have you heard of Elon Musk's new one called Grok?
No,
Grok. It's really good too. Grok is a good one.
good to
Um,
know.
Claude is another one. It's an excellent one as well. All right. Final one. Beach or the mountains?
Mountains. I don't
Oh.
even, you didn't even have to have the out of your mouth. And I
Right.
knew, oh, I love the mountains are my happy place.
Oh my gosh. Okay, tell me about tell me about your most recent mountain experience that was amazing.
So I love to go to Winter Park, Colorado skiing.
Ooh, nice.
I haven't been there recently. So this year I had to settle for local Midwest. There's a great town on the Mississippi River with cliffs. It's really beautiful. But
Mhm.
I love to go to the mountains, the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. And I like to go by myself. It's a solo trip and it's kind of a spiritual retreat for me. There's
Mm.
something about the mountains. They're so majestic and they just cause my jaw to drop in awe.
I'd have to be with you on that one, especially for the mountains. These last couple of times my husband and I have been, we have seen a black bear every time. Of course, thank
Cool.
God we were in the car, but we've seen the most beautiful black bears in the area that we go to in Tennessee. So, have you ever spotted one on your trips?
No, not in the mountains.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I lived in Duluth, Minnesota, and there were bears around there in the north woods of Minnesota, and
Oh,
we would
wow.
see once in a while. I like them, but yeah, I can't get too close.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, so closing comments that you want to give to someone specifically as it relates to your book, Self-Talk and anything around clarity. Just encourage our listeners.
Giovanna, thank you for that question. We think what holds us back is the economy, politics, maybe my neighbor, my spouse, my retirement package. But what really holds us back is not out there. It's really inside. It's
Mm.
the stories you tell yourself, all the reasons you can't do something, why it won't work. And when you change your self talk, everything changes for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, she is Marianne Renner. Self-talk, 10 stories you tell yourself that hold you back and how to overcome them. Make sure you go to mariannerenner.com. Her link is right there on the screen. You can also see it in the chat there. Marianne, thank you so much for being on today. You have been such a breath of fresh air and such a delight to us. I thank you from my heart. I've known you forever, it seems like. And coming on here, um, I can truly say that you walk your talk.
Thank you, Giovanna. I like to call you generous, Giovanna. And I'm
Oh,
just so grateful for how you model excellence and generosity as well. And it's a privilege to call you friend.
oh, wow. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Remember, where God guides, God provides, and where God directs, God protects. Take care, everybody.